Welcome to Module 1. This is the introduction. History, relevance, critical thinking, and research. The great movie producer and director Michael Crichton once wrote, "If you don't know history, then you don't know anything. You are a leaf that doesn't know it is part of a tree." And as President Theodore Roosevelt once stated, the more you know about the past, the better prepared you are for the future. Now, before we discuss a little bit more about the relevance of history, I want to discuss some class information. Online classes, because of their very nature, are demanding. They require a great deal of self-discipline and self-motivation. And in addition, this is an accelerated 7-week course. Because we are not meeting in a face-to-face format, that means that we need to leave the lines of communication open in other ways. Now, please know that I absolutely love teaching, and I am here to help you if you have any questions or concerns. Always feel free to email me or to call me on my cell phone. But please call between 9 a.m. and 5 p.m. Monday through Friday. Whether contacting me via email or cell phone, I will try to respond to you within 12 to 24 hours. I prefer that you do not use text messaging. A little bit about the Canvas Learning Management System. Make certain that you download and read the syllabus for this class, available on the home page of the Canvas Learning Management System. Also, make certain that you read all email messages that I send to you throughout this session. And if, again, you need any clarifications, please contact me. Well, let's first talk a little bit about the relevance of history and critical thinking. History starts with asking the right questions. But before we can even ask the right questions, we need to realize that, and this is a definition of history, my definition of history, that we'll be referring to in our class assignments again and again. History is the search for objectivity and accuracy as it relates to the study of change across time and place, as well as among individuals and groups. So let's break down the different parts of that definition. The first part is objectivity and accuracy. And we can all agree that if discovering the objectivity or accuracy of a situation were so easy, the world wouldn't have so many disagreements and problems. The fact that we disagree is not necessarily a bad thing. That's the way that human societies and people like us learn, evolve, and progress. The Guardian, a British newspaper, produced this Cannes Film Festival award-winning ad about opposing reactions to the Three Little Pigs story and their boiling and eating of the big bad wolf. And on in your leisure time, please tune into this YouTube video. It is hysterical, but it certainly shows you that there are always different perspectives and reactions to any situation. Why is objectivity so difficult for us? I offer two suggestions. One is postmodernism. It's a catch-all term in many academic disciplines, including sciences like physics, where you would discuss Einstein's general theory of relativity, or in chemistry, Heisenberg's uncertainty principle. Anyhow, postmodernism, just like Einstein's theory and Heisenberg's theory as applicable to science, asserts that reality is not entirely knowable due to our own human limitations and our varying, that is, different perceptions. Now, please note that my premise in this class is that postmodernism is only slightly beneficial to history, and that it cautions us to be skeptical. And that is an important step in critical thinking. I believe that we are all capable of achieving some level of objectivity, even if we can't know something in history or even today 100%. Maybe we can know 95% of the objectivity of that reality, that event, that person. Now, the second reason why objectivity is so difficult is we all have certain indisputable human traits. We differ vastly in intelligence and physique and our talents, and our human perceptions of events are sometimes distorted. Psychologists tell us that our subconscious and conscious minds don't always agree with one another, even if we think that they do. Further, sometimes our feelings, our emotion, our kind of heart, fight with our rational, reasonable side, our brain, so to speak. Now, all of this complicates the search for objectivity. For example, I may think I am the most handsome, talented, and intelligent person on earth, but that doesn't make it a fact. It would just make me annoying. I may think that I know all the answers to how to fix education or the economy or healthcare, but that doesn't make it a fact. It would, again, just make me annoying. So the first step in understanding history is to be humble and to admit that there is so much that all of us do not know or do not understand. When we search for objectivity and truth, we have to realize something, that the lack of objectivity can potentially become very dangerous. If we repeat something to ourselves or to others often enough, and psychologists will confirm this, even if it is not true, we and others may come to believe it. Bad leaders know this and use propaganda to further their own cause. For example, some people assert that the Holocaust never happened. My mother-in-law, who fled Germany with her parents, would disagree, as would millions of other survivors of the Holocaust or eyewitnesses, American troops who freed the prisoners, researchers, and many others. Some people argue that the Apollo moon landing in 1969 was a hoax, televised from a studio made to look like the moon. Neil Armstrong, the other astronauts, NASA, thousands of scientists who worked on the project, etc., were they all simply liars? The search for the truth can become dangerous in the wrong hands if it is used to promote false propaganda. Now, the importance of objectivity. Objectivity assumes a couple of important ideas. Number one, that we are truly seeking and are open to the truth, even if it makes us feel uncomfortable. That we reject manipulation by all sides, seeking to be a rational human being rather than a puppet. That we be humble, realizing that we live in a complex world where the solutions to problems are greater than ourselves and oftentimes involve more perspectives and answers and possibilities than just one or two. Now, everybody needs to find their own path to objectivity. My own personal path embraces this quote from St. Augustine of Hippo, who said all the way back in the 4th and 5th century when he lived, "In the middle, there lies virtue." Again, just my personal path to try to find, as an historian, objectivity. Hence, I believe that, and this is kind of also a warning, if a person keeps turning left, that they'll actually arrive at the far right. And also, conversely, if a person keeps turning right, they'll actually arrive at the far left. They're really, in terms of conditions, ways of looking at things, not a great deal of difference sometimes between what we see as the far left and the far right. Now, one other thing we need to learn as we search for objectivity and we search to try to understand leaders who make decisions, and that is, good leaders learn from their mistakes. So I always tell my classes, this is something I believe in, that bad leaders seldom learn from their own mistakes and often blame others for their mistakes. We generally call such bad leaders demagogues. Mediocre leaders sometimes learn from their own mistakes, but good leaders learn from their own mistakes as well as from the mistakes of others. Further, good leaders take ownership, responsibility of their mistakes. And someone asked me recently if I had any regrets looking back on my career. And I said, I really don't have any regrets, but that doesn't mean I didn't make many mistakes. I don't have any regrets because I learned from my mistakes, and I learned from the mistakes of my colleagues and my friends. History is littered with examples of in the wrong hands being abused. Think of people like Adolf Hitler, who rewrote the way he saw and some others saw the beginnings of World War I, and blaming World War I, for instance, on the Jews. As George Orwell, who wrote a novel called 1984, stated, "Who controls the past controls the future. Who controls the present controls the past." So, history is the search for objectivity and accuracy. We just reviewed that, as it relates to the study of change across time and place. So now let's look at change, time, and place. The great ancient Greek philosopher Heraclitus once stated that no man ever steps in the same river twice, for it's not the same river, and he's not the same man. Everything in history flows along. History is the study of change over time and place. Studying history, then, is a two-way street, so be careful. Don't get run down. What do we mean by this? We should always watch both ways for traffic. Traffic going from the past to the present as we study it, and that moving from the present to the past as we sometimes try to push our own present ideas onto the past. Don't assume that everything in the past can relate directly to the present, especially if there are centuries between you and the past. It may relate indirectly, however. And don't carry your own mental baggage into the past. For example, you and Christopher Columbus would think quite differently about many issues. So history is the search for objectivity and accuracy as it relates to the study of change across time and place, also civilizations. So what is civilization? Civilization is humankind's attempt to bring stability and meaning to an uncertain and changing world. Successful civilizations monitor their political and military realities. Their perceptions of conditions are fairly accurate reflections of reality. They recognize and reward successful leaders who tend to be flexible in their response to changing conditions. And just like successful leaders, successful civilizations learn from their mistakes. Now, if you took everything up above and just said, do not, then you've got unsuccessful civilizations that do not successfully monitor political and military conditions. And their perceptions of those conditions are out of touch with reality. Their leaders tend to be inflexible or complacent in regard to changing conditions. Their governments tend to be ruled by little cliques who are not open to new leadership, and they do not learn from their mistakes. The last part of this definition that we need to look at, as well as among individuals and groups. Did you ever see it's kind of a classic film. It's a romantic comedy called 50 First Dates, and it stars Drew Barrymore and Adam Sandler. And Drew Barrymore plays a character who has a kind of amnesia where she can't remember anything beyond an automobile accident when she hit her head a year ago. So every day becomes a reliving at the first part of the day of that day, and every day is reliving things. And Adam Sandler, who falls in love with her and has to kind of figure out a way that she can remember him the next day. I don't want to give any more away because I don't want to be a spoiler in case you want to see this. This movie, while a romantic comedy, still does remind us of the importance of individual memory. But all of us together not only have individual memory, but social memory. The public historians David E. Kivig and Myron A. Marty have stated that social memory serves both society and individuals, as personal memory serves the individual alone and possesses all the same values and flaws. And remember, with social memory and individual memory, sometimes the farther you get away from the event that you're remembering, the less you might remember, or the more you might actually kind of rewrite that memory. And not that you're being, purposely untruthful, but we all have a tendency psychologically to sometimes embellish and change and forget ideas. And so even memories aren't always completely reliable. But what about groups? And what about the importance of how groups and individuals fit into one another? Where does a nation or a culture fit on this continuum? On the one hand, there's collectivism, which is the importance of the group. These are societies that believe that groups are important and that group decision-making is important, that harmony and consensus and compromise are important. And in fact, they would place more priority on groups than they would on individuals. And other nations or cultures, ethnic groups, whatever, are more individualistic. They place more importance on the individual, on individual decision making, and have a kind of majority rules culture. Now, many societies do not lie anywhere at the extreme ends of this spectrum. They're not totally collectivistic or they're not totally individualistic. They probably lie somewhere in between, and some societies lie more towards one end or the other. Again, be certain there are possible dangers if you're on too far or too left of this spectrum. And the left and right mean absolutely nothing in terms of liberal conservative here. Absolutely nothing. It's just right here, it's just a horizontal line, and we're just referring to the direction. If there's too much collectivism, individuals and minorities can be ignored. If you have too much individualism, a society could become very selfish, very greedy. It could lead to all kinds of political gridlock and economic problems. Now, let's look finally at another thing that history enables us to do, and that is to use our reasoning, our critical thinking skills. Now, critical thinking is learning how to ride a bike, like how to ride a bike, how to swim, in essence, how you learn anything. It takes a coach and practice. I'm your coach, but the coach can't ride the bike for you. The coach cannot swim for you. So let's start with step one of what we will use in our assignments as a step-by-step guide to critical thinking. The first step is to identify and or define the problem or issue at hand. You can't find a solution to something in history or how someone tried to find a solution to a problem in history unless you identify or define that problem. The next thing is to analyze the problem or issue. Analysis literally means to separate into parts so that you can see the whole and how the parts relate to one another and the whole. Now, you can keep the puzzle together and simply look at one or two pieces at a time, taking one or two pieces out and putting them back in to show everyone how everything fits. So you begin, say for instance, a puzzle. The first thing you're going to do, literally, with that picture puzzle is look at the box cover, right? You need to understand what the outcome needs to be, and that what the problem is, what the issue is. Then you're going to begin to analyze it. It's going to already be separated into parts, and you're going to look at those parts and the relationship of those parts to one another. Based upon steps 1 and 2, then you theorize about the problem or the issue. A theory or thesis is a specific statement about a topic. For instance, I'm just going to throw anything out here. If you said economic problems were the most important cause of the fall of the Roman Empire, that would be a thesis. Saying that the Roman Empire fell is not a thesis. That's just a statement. We're trying to get at a thesis which tells a specific statement about a topic. Another example of a thesis would be that fascism and Hitler and his expansion of Germany was one of the causes of World War II, etc., etc. Or at the end of World War II, the division of Europe into separate spheres between Britain, France, the United States, and the Soviet Union led to the beginning, eventually, of the Cold War, etc. Now is the time to think about how you're beginning and concluding their paragraphs in your assignment, in your papers, will summarize your thesis. I like what Sherlock Holmes said to Watson. Never theorize before you have data. Invariably, you end up twisting facts to suit theories instead of theories to suit facts. And then step 4 is to explain your theory or thesis through synthesis. And synthesis means to piece everything together. And like a picture puzzle, your critical thinking skills will piece the puzzle pieces together for your reader. Now, your audience isn't going to simply accept your theory thesis. Prove it, they'll say. Make us see how it all fits together. So you need to lead your audience to your conclusion, to explain your theory thesis with factual evidence. The critical thinking, the mnemonic, the memory tool we're going to use here in this class is I-8, where each one of these stands for some portion. I stands for identify the problem, A, analyze the problem, T, theorize, and E, explain your theory through synthesis. Now, let me give you a just really practical example. Identify the problem issue. You live in Cincinnati. Your sick friend in California has asked you to come and help her for a short time. Now you need to analyze the problem issue. You're probably going to need to call her, email her, text her, get more information. How time sensitive is the issue? Does your friend need you very soon, or can it wait a couple of weeks? What does the project staffing schedule at your work look like? When can you take some vacation days? Who will care for your family or loved one's pets when you are gone helping your friend? Can you afford to fly round trip to California? If not, can you take a train, a bus, your car, a rental car? Would the driving go faster if there were another friend to accompany you and help you with the driving? How will you schedule your days with your friend to help her most efficiently? You're analyzing the problem. You're taking it apart bit by bit. Then you theorize. After you've analyzed the issue as completely as possible, you come up with a solution or theory. You can now contact your friend and explain the whole situation so that she will understand. And here's your theory solution. In 2 weeks, I'll be happy to fly out to California and to help you for a week in your recovery after surgery. I wish I could visit sooner and offer you more time and assistance, but I cannot, as I'll explain in a forthcoming phone call. Now you're going to explain through synthesis. Your friend may feel hurt unless you explain why you arrived at the conclusion that you did. This is where your explanation synthesizes your important findings and data. For instance, I apologize that I cannot visit you next week during your surgery and hospitalization. My employer needs my team to complete a very important proposal next week for a $2 million contract. My employer will allow me the vacation time to visit you in 2 weeks. That will enable me to help you around your apartment during your recovery. I am not a nurse, but I can run errands, fix meals, help with housekeeping, take you to your follow-up doctor's appointments, and keep you company. Since my boss will only allow me to take 1 week's vacation, I am flying out to California so that I can maximize my time with you. If you need further help, I may be able to take off another week next month. So as you see, you use critical thinking each and every day of your life. Now we're going to apply it to history, and at this point we'll ask you to proceed with the second kind of micro lecture on research, writing, and citing history.